Hello, everyone, and welcome to day number 8 of the Advent calendar for 2018. Today, we are revealing the Cavalier Brown Ale. It's the beer you should be popping out of your Advent calendar today. And with me, I've got Steve Martin, who is the co-founder of Cavalier Brewing. G'day, Steve.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me on the show.
That's all right. How are you?
Very well, thank you. It's nice and warm down here in Melbourne. Meant to be 37 degrees today. Perfect beer drinking weather.
That's the way. So tell us a little bit about Cavalier Brewing, where you guys are based, what you guys do, styles of beers you guys like to brew.
Yeah, well, we've been around 8 years now, I suppose, is just ticked over. The first 2 years of that were spent gypsy brewing, actually, if you can believe it.
Yeah.
And then it took about 2 years before we decided to take the plunge and invest our life savings into building a brewery of our own. That was out west in Derrimut, little suburb just west of Sunshine, where the rent was nice and cheap at the time. It was all we could afford. We built the place on a shoestring. But then we had a lot of other gypsy brewers come through us as well, and that managed to help us grow, and we probably helped to incubate half of Victoria's craft breweries now. So we're pretty proud of that. It was our opportunity to give back to the people who helped us gypsy brew starting out as well.
Yeah, I do remember it probably about 4 or 5 years ago. When we'd be sourcing beers and asking people where they're currently brewing, and the Cavalier name would very often pop up in conversation. And for anyone at home who doesn't kind of know what gypsy brewing is, it's effectively when a brewer has got a brewing brand and is making beer, but doesn't necessarily have their own stainless steel or their own facility, and then they go to the likes of Cavalier, and they kind of schedule in a brew day and then use your fermenters and tanks and brewing equipment and packaging equipment, and then at the end of the day, after a few weeks, they've got a beer that they can go out and market. And it's a strategy that quite a lot of brewers in Australia have used to get their beer to market without having to do the very hefty investment into not just the property, but also licensing, and stainless steel is not cheap, is it?
Absolutely. Well said, Jeff.
So, I think from us as a retailer to you, I do thank you for the work that you guys have done for supporting those startup brewing businesses that many have gone on to start up their own businesses and have their own premises. And I think it kind of reflects what the industry is like, that, you guys wouldn't shut your doors to other people to come in and give them a hand. So I think that's part of the industry, part of what we love about the industry. So.
Absolutely. We have a slogan at Cavalier that beer people are good people, and we wouldn't be here if it weren't for the generosity of other bigger, more established brands when we were trying to get a foothold in the market. Yeah. And we're never about to say no either to someone who wants to come and work with us. Happy to help.
That's awesome. So
paying it back.
That's the way. So for today, we've got your Cavalier Brown Ale. Tell me a little bit about that, and I'm going to pour a glass of it. So where did this beer originate?
You're making me jealous now.
Sorry about that. How did this beer originate? Where does it sit in your portfolio? What should people be expecting?
Yeah, so this beer is, it's got a great story behind it. It's probably our oldest beer that we have in the brand. It's a staple. It's always made up part of our core range.
Yeah.
It was conceived, believe it or not, back in university days when we couldn't afford to buy beer.
Yeah.
And so we had to homebrew everything. And this was one of the first beers that we brewed. It was the height of summer, much like it is now, very, very hot. And we love our dark beers, but we wanted something that we could still drink in hot weather. And so we decided to settle on a little-known style. It's not well established. There's not lots of them around. Yeah. And we wanted something that was still easy drinking, didn't have too much body, it wasn't as heavy as a stout or a porter. Even though it does appear that way, it's still a very dark beer. But the reality is that it's the body's being pulled right back, and it's not super hoppy or anything. So it's still very quaffable, even in warm weather. That was the thinking behind making it. And truth be told, the recipe, it's the only beer in our portfolio where the recipe hasn't changed since conception.
Right.
So we were very happy with it straight out of the box. And it's also the only beer that survived over from homebrewing days, actually, to now our commercial portfolio.
So it's probably almost a 15 or 20-year-old beer. Would that be about right?
That's probably right. Yeah, coming as far as the recipe goes, it's closing in on 20 years exactly.
And I guess the
So,
brown ale style is an interesting one because, like you say, when I poured it, and I haven't actually had the Cavalier Brown. I must admit, even in the new packaging, which I know has been out for about a year or so, so it's probably been a couple of years since I've had the Cavalier Brown. It's always rated
right.
very highly, but it is. I couldn't remember it being this dark, so it's almost as dark as a
Yep.
porter, but doesn't have, like you say, the body's kind of been pared back. That
Precisely. And same with the roasty notes.
Yeah, if
They've been dialed back as well.
If you just to look at it on colour, you probably would guess the style wrong. And
it does scare a lot of people away, and it's not until they taste it that they're pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and I think brown ales for me always kind of play that role between a red ale and a porter or a stout. And
yep, absolutely.
Like many beers, every brewer has got their own kind of twist on it. And we were talking to the guys, one of the other brewers, and talking about the style. Actually, won't talk about it because it's going to be revealed. It's not yet been revealed.
Don't do that now.
I won't do that. But how that style, there's a plethora of what brewers are doing with it, and one version of the style versus 20 other versions of the styles could be completely different. So
that's right. And this one's a very good example of that. It doesn't actually fit in a very good in an exact category, whether it's like an English brown or an American brown ale, for example. It's more of a hybrid. It does have American hops in it, but it's not hoppy enough or bitter enough to be classified as an American brown. Yeah. And then by contrast, it doesn't qualify as an English brown either. So it's sort of it's sitting somewhere in the middle there as a hybrid, like so many craft beers are.
Yeah, and
most of what we make doesn't sit neatly in any category anymore.
And I was going to say the hop edition seems a bit more than a normal brown ale. So then you could almost go, right, but it's then quite dark. So does it start playing in the Cascadian dark ale category,
Yes, potentially, exactly. No, it just doesn't fit anymore, does it? Yeah, and I think we should probably stop trying to categorize them so neatly, forcing them into pigeonholes.
That's it. But for everyone at home, it does look quite dark, but the body is quite light. It's got a beautiful tan head on it, and you definitely get some of that roastiness as well as the hop character on the nose. Which I find quite beautiful.
Chocolate and coffee is what I get out of the beer predominantly.
Yeah.
And it's also the water profile that we use is quite chloride heavy, so it gives the mouthfeel a really pillowy effect. Okay. So it sits around nicely, even though the body's nice and light. So we've mashed it really cold so that we can keep that final gravity low and the residual sugar low. So it's not sweet, but it's still nicely balanced. And as a result, it makes it very drinkable.
Yeah.
But then with that pillowy effect, the mouthfeel is still nice and full. Yeah. So I get chocolate and coffee predominantly out of that one.
I might have to grab myself a 6-pack to take home for the weekend, I think.
And you can drink it in the warm weather. That's the best bit about it.
That's it. And so that in itself kind of tries to break conventions as well, doesn't it? Where people
precisely
try and categorise that only dark beers are just for winter.
Or heavy drinking, I suppose, hard going with a dark beer. Yeah, we tried to make an easy drinking dark beer, and this is our answer to that.
Beautiful. And just back to the brewery before we wrap up. The brewery, you guys, there's tasting room there. People can come and visit.
There is. We've just opened our tap room 2 months ago. So despite having been a production facility for the last 6 years and not open to the public, we finally took the plunge, and we're now retailing our own product on site in our new tap room. We threw the doors open and thought we'd bring the beer to the people. So come on down. We've got a South American food truck that lives there permanently, serving empanadas and chorizos and all sorts of beer-friendly food. So we've partnered with them, and they're in there alongside us. We're just doing Friday afternoons at the moment, into the evenings as well. And it's always a big party. On the 21st, we've actually got a 4-piece blues band coming in the Friday before Christmas. So it should be a great time.
And
everyone's welcome.
Pet-friendly, family-friendly.
We are, and we even shout your Uber. If you rock into my tap room and show me your Uber receipt, I will give you the equivalent amount in beer.
How is that? Shouted Uber rides in beer. We'll have to shout that.
Right. Bring your mates.
All right. Well, Steve, from Sydney to Melbourne, thank you very much for joining me on the video today. For everyone at home, I hope you're enjoying the Cavalier Brown Ale, and enjoying it today, and hopefully it changes a couple of perceptions as to what darker beers or brown ales could be. And we look forward to seeing you in the next couple of days. Cheers.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
cheers.
Cheerio.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Bye.
Christmas to you too.